Hello, hello, hello. It is 7 o'clock. It's Thursday, and this is Sabrina's Space. And I am so glad that you have chosen to join me. And I look forward to Thursdays. I don't know. Sometimes people are in our chat, and sometimes people are listening at a later time. So either way, it's good to have you. I'm so glad that you're here. I hope you had a good day today. I actually have an in-studio guest, and he's going to say hello. It's my brother, Darren.
Hello, hello.
And that's Darren. And Darren is joining me today live for Sabrina's Space. And hopefully you will also find time on Thursdays to join me live in our chat. And you can do that, but you have to go to Spreaker.com. Spreaker.com, and you have to search for Sabrina's Space, and then I think you can follow some online directions, and it will get you into our chat so that you too can join me live. I know people are listening in different places in the country, maybe even in the world, so you may not have a chance to, but all of the podcasts you can listen at Apple Podcast, at Google Podcast, iHeart Podcast. You can listen on Deezer. You can listen to just about any podcast platform. You can come and you can listen to Sabrina's Space, or you can listen to The Word with Sabrina. So I actually do two podcasts, and I would be so happy if you would just listen, if you would like, if you would share. If you would share on your Facebook pages or on your social media pages, if you would share the podcast, that would be a blessing to me as well. So I had a contest not too long ago. If you listen to the Riddle podcast, I gave a riddle and have a winner for that. So I don't know if that was something you wanted to participate in, but you still may want to understand or hear what the riddle was about. And that podcast can be listened to at Spreaker.com and the other podcast platforms that I just named. You can find me at Sabrina Randall Ministries on Facebook and also on Instagram. And at Twitter, you can go to, let's see, my user is Brina Being Real. That's BRINABEINREAL. And that is on Twitter. And I just put up different things that I hope are encouraging and inspiring, and even that are the Word of God. So let's get started tonight. I want to talk about something because I've been talking to quite a few people, and I know people are going through. And people are still feeling the effects of COVID. And that is something that is not just going on in the country that I live in, but people all over are feeling lonely, are confused, have lost jobs and means of income, are worried about their children and their schooling and masks and vaccines. And so it's a lot. It's a lot, and it's a lot that's happening all over the world all at the same time. Not just that, we have the regular things that we might be going through. Our economies are going up and down, and we are going through inflation, though they don't particularly want to say it. And unfortunately, what happens in America affects all around the world a lot of times. So I saw something, I think, on the news, climate change, and people are starving, and we have disasters and natural disasters and things that are associated with climate change. So there are a lot of things to consider. There are a lot of things to worry about right now. A lot of people are anxious, but I want to just share with you something that I came across. I want to start reading my scriptures. I think I want to put my scriptures in the chat. So I am going to try and multitask and type and talk, which is kind of hard sometimes, but if you will stick with me, I want to put our scriptures in the chat, and I will be referring to them as I speak, so that you can write them down and study along with me whenever you listen to me, whenever you listen to this particular podcast. You can study right along with it. So 1 Samuel 26, 1 through 10. And Psalm 63. So I want to start by reading 1 Samuel 26. I think I'm going to read, from 1 to 10. So if you'll read along with me, I just want to give a little backstory on this. We find David before he's king, and he is running here and there, running from King Saul, who is determined to kill David. David was the champion in killing Goliath, and Saul at that time took David from his family to come into his palace, to be a part of his kingdom, and to play for him. And David played the harp skillfully, and he sang. David is a worshiper, and we know David is a worshiper. David sang out in the fields, even as he watched over his father's sheep. And we know that many of the Psalms were written by David, and we know that the Psalms are songs. And so David wrote, and he sang, and he played, and it helped Saul. It helped King Saul, who was vexed with the spirit that as David began to sing and as he began to worship God, that spirit would leave Saul, and Saul would have peace. And so Saul appreciated the gift that was in David, brought him into his house. David and Saul's son, Jonathan, bonded, and we know that. But that was much to Saul's chagrin. Saul was not happy about that arrangement and felt like that his son Jonathan was in cahoots with David to take over his kingdom. His whole thought about David changed, and he began to try and kill David. And David was always one step ahead of Saul, because the Lord would let him know that King Saul was after him here or there and was going to try and kill him. And Saul had every intention of killing David. And this went on for some time, this whole cat and mouse kind of a thing. This whole thing went on for a while, where King Saul chased David, trying to kill him. And so with that backstory, let us begin to read in 1 Samuel chapter 26, because we find David on the run once again from Saul, and David would go into different caves. He might be hiding in a cave, or he might be hiding in what they called wilderness areas, which were mountainous areas, sometimes with trees and forest. And so he would go and he would hide from Saul. So here's where we find David in this whole situation going on in the book of 1 Samuel in chapter 26. I'm going to start at 1 and read down to 10. It says, and the Ziphites, and word is actually Ziph, the Ziphites, came unto Saul to Gibeah, saying, does not David hide himself in the hill of Hakilah, which is before Jeshimon? So they go find Saul, and they tell him, we know where David is. We know where he's hiding. The Ziphites get together and they find Saul and say, well, now wait a minute, ain't he's here. Then it says in 2, then Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, having 3,000 chosen men of Israel with him, to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul pitched in the hill of Hakilah, which is before Jeshimon, by the way. But David abode in the wilderness, and he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness. David therefore sent out spies, and understood that Saul was come in very deed. So David sends out spies, and they look and they said, oh yeah, he's down here. He's come to the wilderness, and he is looking for you. 4 says, David therefore sent out spies and understood that Saul was come in very deed. Go to 5. And David arose and came to the place where Saul had pitched. And David beheld the place where Saul lay. And Abner, the son of Ner, he was the captain of Saul's host. So remember, Saul's got 3,000 chosen men. And the captain of this host is Abner. And it says in 5, and Saul lay in the trench, and the people, they pitched round about him. So him being the king, those 3,000 men surrounded him while he slept to protect him. Because you don't want, your king, right, you don't want nobody to creep up on you. So 6 said, then answered David and said to Ahimelech the Hittite and Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, brother of Joab, saying, who will go down with me to Saul to the camp? And Abishai said, I'll go with you. I'm paraphrasing, but stick with me now. So David and Abishai came to the people by night. And behold, Saul lay sleeping within the trench, and his spear stuck in the ground at his bolster. But Abner and the people lay around about him. Then said Abishai to David, God had delivered thine enemy into thine hand this day. Now therefore, he said what he said to David, in other words to David, he said, look, he said, Saul laid up his sleep. He said, we're able to kill him right now. Let me kill him. Your enemy has been brought into your hand, is what he said to David. He said, I pray thee with the spear even to the earth at once, and I will not smite him the second time. What he said is, he said, I'm so good, David. I'm going to take my spear. It ain't going to take but one time to kill him. I'm not going to have to do it twice. Go on and let me do it. What he was saying, too, is that even with these men laying around him, I can still kill him. We can get away. We're going to be good. And David said, I'm in 9. And David said to Abishai, destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? David said furthermore, as the Lord lives, the Lord shall smite him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall descend into battle and perish. So what he said to the guy that was with him, don't kill him. God will kill him. And if God don't take him, he'll die some other way, or he'll die in battle. So I wanted to read this and kind of lay this out and spread this out before you as I go on to my second point and to the meat of the message. David has got problems, and namely it's Saul. Because Saul has chased David from cave to mountain to wilderness to over with the Philistines he was with. He has run and run and run. But I wanted to show you something. If you go with me, get your Bible if you don't have it. And of course, I'm reading from the King James Version, which I am every Thursday. But I just want to read to you Psalm 63. And we know that the Psalms are songs, and many of them David wrote. Psalm 63 actually has a title in my Bible, not in every Bible, but in my Bible. There is a title, and it says that this is a Psalm of David when he was in the wilderness of Judah. And I just want you to understand something. David was a worshiper. More than he was a worshiper, he loved God. So David could be in some of the worst situations, but he was still sitting up writing songs. Let me read what Psalm 63 says. Again, this is a Psalm of David when he was in the wilderness of Judah. And we would have to wonder if he's running, how is he running? But he's still writing. He wasn't on the run every day, every second. And in his downtime, in between trying to stay out of Saul's way and trying to stop from being killed, he's writing songs. He says in Psalm 63, "O God," he says, "Thou art my God." He said, "Early will I seek thee. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you in a dry and thirsty land where no water is." He said, "To see your power and your glory, so as I have seen thee in the sanctuary, because your loving kindness is better than life. My lips shall praise thee." And I'm paraphrasing some parts because it's important to me that you understand that in the midst of going through, in the midst of having a hard time, he was still writing songs. He was still waking up praising God. He says in 63 and 4, he says, "I will bless thee while I live. I I will lift up my hands in your name. My soul shall be satisfied as with marrow and with fatness.